I'll just introduce Howard Parkin, who FAE, who's going to give us our talk. Thank you.
Very much indeed. Thank you, and it's great to be here, and I hope you enjoy what I'm going to talk about, which people have often said to me about astronomy. I've been interested in astronomy since I was a young child. I was aged about 8 when Yuri Gagarin went into space, and that's it. I've been hooked on astronomy and space ever since. But this particular topic has a very important message. It started off many years ago, about 2011 I reckon, when I started looking into the problems of the skies not being dark enough because of excess light pollution. Since then, the topic has grown dramatically. It's not just about astronomy, my passion, but it's also very strong environmental impacts as well. Because there's all sorts of problems that light brings to us, excessive light brings to us. At the outset, I've got to say, I am not opposed to light. Appropriate lighting is fine. It's the inappropriate and excessive lighting that causes the problem. So basically, this is the world. We all know what the world looks like. It's a beautiful blue marble, first seen from space in 1968, gave birth to the growth of global consciousness. But if we look at the same thing at night time, some people regard this as beautiful. I find it abhorrent, because what we're looking at there is the effect of mankind on the globe. We can see our effects from space. These are real images taken from satellites of some kind. And if we look at the world at night, you can see quite clearly there that the continents of the United States and Europe and Japan and places like that are awash with light. And I would suggest we have got a serious problem. This is the United States, this is Europe, and of course, we have a problem. We have a problem, and frankly, we're not doing anything about it. We're doing very little about it. There's lots of initiatives to do with the biosphere, with the Earth, with green issues, with climate change, CO2 and all the rest. Light pollution is almost ignored. And only this week in Onken, that came to bite me very seriously, as I'll explain a bit later on. Now, as I already mentioned, I have no problem with lighting. Can you imagine what the world would be like without light? Historically, we get up when it gets light, we work till it's dark and we go to bed. Lighting has enabled us to do far more. It lights up places, it lights up this room, there's no windows in this room, it lights up this room perfectly well. It enables us to have hospitals, police stations, emergency services and everything. Light is essential to our existence on the Earth. But can you imagine what it would be like without light bulbs? The first light bulb was invented by a chap called Edison, way back in about 1879, and when his light bulbs first appeared on the New York streets, it revolutionized civilization.
The invention of the electric light bulb, 150 years ago, was one of the most transformative milestones in history. This new form of light, artificial light, brightened and made safe once dark streets, prolonged waking hours into the evening, and brought electricity into homes for the very first time.
So it was revolutionary in so many ways. And even here in the Isle of Man, we had our part to play. Port Jack in Onken was the first place in the Isle of Man to get electric streetlights in 1897. It was done for a commercial venture. It was done for the Douglas and Laxey Coastal Tramway, who set up the electric railway which runs to Laxey and then on to Ramsey, and they lit up the streets of Port Jack. It wasn't even in Onken at that time. Onken commissions didn't start until a couple of years later. So, enterprising businesses they were, they said, would you like us to install lighting along Douglas Promenade in exchange for giving us a tramway along the prom? No horse trams, electric trams along Douglas Prom. What a great idea. Douglas Corporation, as they were then, said, no thank you. And Douglas was one of the last towns of its size in the British Isles to get electric lighting. As I say, if only they'd done that, we wouldn't have problems with the horse trams. We'd be all going commuting along the prom in electric trams. Sadly, it wasn't to be. But I'll ask you a question. What have these images got in common? This is a park in London. This is a fishing village in Sikanuuville in Cambodia. You can't even see the water for the amount of litter. And that's Europe at night. These are all like pollution. These are all pollution of the various types. It's a human problem. We've created, man-made, human-made, what do you want to say, and we've created it. And what are we doing about it? Very little. I went with my wife to see the film Downton Abbey the other day. When we see Downton Abbey? Probably it's not the age range that wants to watch Downton Abbey.
It finished last night.
you saw it. But when you watch Downton Abbey or indeed any major film, this is what you see at the beginning. Very pretty, there's the Earth. Look at that. That's nice, isn't it? All the lights of America and Europe are seen as something of artistic merit. They're not. They're abhorrent. It's light pollution, and we need to be doing things about it.
Until just over a century ago, our night skies were very dark. Now, even the wilderness is invaded by light. Our cities glow at night. Buildings are lit up. Unshielded lights blind us as we travel along our streets and roads. All these artificial lights overpower the darkness.
Nothing wrong with overpowering darkness when you need it, but I would argue there's an excessive amount of lighting. At the very beginning, before I started this lecture, you'll have noticed I had a movie sequence there. Well, this is a short snap from that same film you saw a moment ago. This is Europe at night. As you can see there, all the lights. There's the British Isles, and I'll stop it there, and there's the Isle of Man. Just look like this doesn't work on here. You can see quite clearly London, Bristol, Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle, Glasgow and Edinburgh, Belfast and Dublin. Even we have got lights visible from space. Too many lights. What's the point of lighting up the sky? Put the lights so they point downwards, so therefore we can use it and it costs us less money. If we look at Europe over the last 20 years or so, this is a photograph of Europe taken in about 1992. Look closely at that picture now, and I'll show you the same picture about 18 years later. That's how much it's grown. Go forward and back for a minute. That's how it was. Look at particularly the River Nile down here in Egypt. If you look at that, the lighting has grown significantly. And that is something we're doing and repeating ourselves all the time. In the UK, this is the UK in 1993. Now look closely at the red bits. The red bits are the urban areas. They do not change dramatically. But if we look at the same image for the year 2000, the light blue, that's where the rural areas are, that's where the suburbs are, the non-city environments. And you can see there is a huge increase in lighting up the night sky and obscuring heavens from astronomy, but also for environmental reasons. And I would argue, as a scientist, that we're losing the dark of night at the speed of light.
Much of that yellow glare the astronauts see comes from streetlights. They produce most of the light pollution on the planet. The glare is scattered by the atmosphere, creating sky glows over the landscape. We are losing the dark of night at the speed of light.
Again, this is probably a little bit old for some of you. Some of you might have seen the film Dad's Army. Do you know of Dad's Army? Well, Mr. Hodges has something to say about it. This is the Iowa State University campus on a normal night. You can't see the sky at all, but put the lights out, you can see the Milky Way quite clearly. And that's something that we don't see. You can only see the Milky Way when there's no moon in the sky. Between a week each side of the new moon, you'll see the Milky Way. From the Isle of Man, quite spectacular. But many people have never seen it. This is the Milky Way from a dark sky site. And you can see the same image, same photograph, but the lights are out. It makes such a huge difference. 1994, we had an earthquake, a terrible earthquake. People killed, lots of economic disaster and everything else. Happened in 1994.
On January 17, 1994, a powerful earthquake struck the Los Angeles area and caused a massive blackout. Nearby Griffith Observatory started receiving calls from residents asking about the strange sky they were seeing. What those people saw was the Milky Way. With no artificial light, the sight of the night sky was so unfamiliar, they didn't know what they were looking Today, more than 80% of the world and more than 99% of the US and Europe live under light-polluted skies. A third of humans on Earth can never see the Milky Way. And places like Singapore are so polluted by light that people's eyes never fully adjust to the dark.
I am very fortunate. I go on cruise ships lecturing on astronomy and including dark skies, and the amount of people that will say to me, I've never seen the Milky Way. It's tragic. Show of hands, how many people can truthfully say they've seen the Milky Way?
I don't know.
Most of you, 50% say. But unless you're in a dark location, you're never going to see it. If you go down to the Sound, there's the Milky Way clearly visible from the Isle of Man at the Sound. However, the lights of Dublin are affecting our horizon. That orange glow actually affects the... I just think we should have the lights out there, shouldn't we? It doesn't matter. We'll crack on. So that's the astronomical aspect of it. We can't see the Milky Way, we can't see the stars, we can't see things, and when we do see them, we're astounded. But, as I mentioned at the very beginning, it ain't just about astronomers. When we look into this subject, and as I say, about 10-15 years ago, I was doing it 90% from an astronomical basis. Now, there are loads of headlines stating that the effects of excessive light is bad for the environment and for us as human beings. I'll just go through some of those in a bit of detail. Pollination. We all know how vital pollination is. Without pollination, we don't get the flowers, we don't get the fruit, we don't get the vegetables, whatever else. It is vital to our survival on Earth.
Pollination, which we desperately need, is not just for pretty flowers and trees, but for food has to be pollinated. That can be lowered by as much as 60% in the area of our
We always want to tug at this one thing, like what good is a moth? But it's so much bigger than that. An ecosystem is interconnected, and we do not really understand when we tug at one that everything else comes with it.
We don't have as many fireflies as we used to have. Over 1 billion birds die each year trying to migrate because they get trapped in the lights of cities or get misdirected.
The more biodiverse an ecosystem is, the better it is for everyone's health.
It's just pollination. Another issue. Another issue. Remember this picture I showed you earlier? This is the UK at night time. You can see quite clearly there the sort of corridor from the northwest down to London. You can see that. I showed a bigger picture of this earlier. But if we look at trees, if we look particularly at beech trees, at oak trees, sycamore trees and ash trees, there's a clear correlation there to when these trees bud, along with their light pollution. This has the effect of changing the whole rhythm. The whole ecosystem gets changed because the trees bud earlier, the insects come out earlier, the predators for the insects come out earlier. In the meantime, the rural areas, Wales and Scotland and places like that, the normal pattern. So it's confusing for the animals, it's confusing for the wildlife, and it's a problem, again, we're not doing enough about. This picture, I just love this picture of an owl with a full moon. The moon, of course, biggest source of light pollution in the night sky. But it's a natural phenomenon, and it helps creatures in their own particular rhythms.
Everything from fireflies that can't find mates, to dung beetles who no longer navigate by the Milky Way, and from baby sea turtles walking into roads instead of the sea.
After spending 1 to 2 months under the sand, hatchlings break free from their eggs and dig to the surface. In a mad frenzy, the freed hatchlings race toward the brightest horizon. They're trying to reach the safety of the open ocean, where they spend their early years developing in floating algae beds. Under natural conditions, light provided by the moon and stars would make the ocean the brightest horizon. These light cubes lead the sea turtles back to the water. The wrong types of light used on or near the beach can confuse and disorient them, leading them away from the ocean. Once disoriented, both adults and hatchlings will crawl until they find water, are rescued, or most often until they die.
Run over by cars. Nowadays, in places like the Caribbean, where you get these sort of sea turtles hatching, there are human groups. There are groups of people who will go to the beaches, build banks of sand, so they're blocking out the ambient light from the nearby towns, so the turtles have a clear run to the sea. But that's a fraction of what we need to be doing. And that's just one example that we can use. There's loads of others I could use. There's one called dog whelks. Dog whelks are creatures that move up and down with the high tide. But because of too much light, they're staying out to the high tide zone, longer than they should be, and being predated on. Likewise, if they go too deep because there's less light and the light pattern is all changed, it affects them as well. So you've got the sexy, if you like, sea turtles and primitive dog whelks. And it's across the board. There are so many different types of animals affected by excessive light. From a human perspective, lighting is very expensive. If we go to places in the world like Singapore, beautiful city, at night time it's awash with light. And I use Kuala Lumpur as an example because Kuala Lumpur have got these twin towers, the Kuala Lumpur Petronas Towers. While I was there earlier this year, someone actually told me, I asked them the question, what's the cost to light those towers up? $200,000 US in lighting costs alone for the two towers, the Petronas Towers. I thought we were short of money. I thought we needed money for other things like climate change or whatever. But we're spending a fortune on lighting. We shouldn't be doing it. We should be mindful of it. And that's why I'm here today to tell you about this so you can go on and tell other people about it. And what about our carbon footprint to create such energy? Yes, we've got renewables, but we've also got a lot of coal and oil being used to produce electricity. One of the few success stories I've got is New York City, because New York City suffered a terrible tragedy 9/11 years ago now, and they've decided when they built the new tower, they would put on the footprints of the old towers, which were obviously flattened, and they put big searchlights on to commemorate the tragedy, and so people don't forget.
Every September 11th in Lower Manhattan, 88 7,000 watt searchlights shine into the night sky as a tribute in light. It's one of the brightest light installations ever constructed, and even though it's only on for one night a year, over 1 million birds have been lured in by these lights, disrupting their annual migration, and many have died after colliding with buildings. Now, if more than 1,000 birds are counted in the lights, they're turned off for 20 minutes. You can watch on this radar image as the lights alternate between on and off, and huge clouds of disoriented birds go safely on their way.
So that's a success story. I wish I had more. But let's turn to the human effect of light pollution. A few months ago, and I'm sure lots of you have driven up and down the British motorway system, well, the British motorway system now has got signs on it in certain places. No street lighting midnight to 5 AM or no lights until 5:30 AM. Next time, I'm sure most of you drive, next time you're in a car driving on the British motorways and you come to a place where there's lots of street lights, do you change your speed? No. When the lights end, do you change your speed? No. You use common sense. You drive according to the conditions and as per the lights you've got in your own vehicle. Yes, they produce light pollution, but they were using them exactly for the purpose, not illuminating the roads for miles upon miles when there's nobody on them. And I noticed these pictures, as I say, just a few weeks ago. I was in the UK, and now they are turning the lights off in selected places. Not enough, but it's a start. And a spokesman for the UK Highway Agency said that basically evidence so far indicates that switching off the lights between the hours of midnight and 5 AM on carefully selected sections of road has not had an adverse effect on safety. So we accepted that we don't need the lights, but we still have them everywhere. The slightest excuse to put a street light up, we do.
A major misconception about outdoor lighting is that it's not the same. That isn't necessarily the truth. A 2015 study from the UK found that streetlights don't prevent accidents or crime. When they dimmed or completely shut off streetlights, they found the number of road collisions did not change. Also, a 2012 report by the American Medical Association claimed, quote, glare from nighttime lighting can create hazards ranging from discomfort to frank visual disability.
I know quite a few people of my age and older who will not drive at night because the glare of the light is so intense. It doesn't bother me too much, but then again, I'm getting older and hope maybe it will in the future. Crime. We often say, oh, we've got too much crime, we need to light up these areas to prevent crime. I have no figures for the UK, well they did mention their report, but if we look at these places in the United States, Austin, Las Vegas, Mesa and Portland, the orange area is where you have burglaries, the red area is where you have thefts. The hours of daylight show quite clearly the correlation is that most crime takes place during daylight hours. Street lighting has no effect or minimal effect on it. A statistic proves that over 80% of all criminal activity takes place during the day. So we don't need lights to prevent crime. who don't need lights to prevent for road safety, as has been proved as well. But it does affect us as individuals.
Light pollution poses a silent threat to our health. Exposure to light at night disrupts the circadian rhythms that regulate our sleep cycles. People working at night under bright lights or living in light-polluted cities face a higher risk of developing diseases such as breast and prostate cancer.
And that's a proven medical fact. And I've got 2 slides here, but that first one we'll ignore. The next one we'll come on to. Lots of you travel long distance, been to America, places like that? Did you ever take melatonin pills to help you sleep to get over the jet lag? Well, melatonin is a substance secreted by the body to help us sleep. A number of medical surveys have taken place in recent years that prove that the human body's ability to secrete melatonin is diminished by excessive light. A French study found that LED lighting can also harm the human eye, and I'll come back to that in just a moment. But these LED lights in particular, the blue LED lights, which we're installing all over the island and different places, the transition to blue light stops your body secreting melatonin to help you sleep. You get jet lag, you take a melatonin pill when you want to sleep, and it helps you. We can do it artificially, but the body does it naturally for us. And the dark side of blue lights, melatonin suppression, the new blue LED lights brings about a new kind of light pollution. These are 2 surveys done in 2022. And most alarmingly, if we go into a bit of a science, the electromagnetic spectrum, which is the rainbow of colours in front of you there, show that blue light does have a far greater effect on the production of melatonin in our bodies than the other light colours. And this hormone, this melatonin that aids our sleep, has been known that disruptions to that rhythm, shift working for instance, or working in bright lit places for too long, can be linked to various cancers, in particular prostate and breast cancer. We'll go into a little bit more detail of it. This here, the blue line there, this blue line here, this is where the wavelength is. This is the output of LED streetlights like they're installing in Onken in my road today. The old lights were orange. The high pressure sodium and low pressure sodium light were down here. But anything in this zone here, around the 500 nanometer area, is an area that affects the secretion of melatonin. And worse than that, we've now come to the conclusion that chronic exposure to excessive UV light, and that blue end of the spectrum is the UV end, the infrared is obviously the red end, the UV light can cause retinal damage, and that can cause macular degeneration. Macular degeneration is now known to be a modern disease, but it's an urban disease. It tends to be more prevalent in places where there's lots of light. That map I showed you earlier, America, Europe, Japan, those places have a higher incidence of macular degeneration. And a South Korean study only earlier last year proved that high level of streetlights and other artificial light more than doubles the odds of you suffering from macular degeneration, which again tends to be a disease that happens to older people, but it's something we are not aware of. And what are we doing about it? Very little. As well as all that, as well as all the negative sides of it and the environmental effects of it, it does cost us a lot of money to produce all this electricity.
On average, humanity consumes 62,000 terajoules of electricity per hour. That's how much energy your gas-powered car would need to drive to Pluto and back, twice. 1/5 of all this energy goes towards lighting. That's a lot of energy, and producing it means spewing a lot of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Obviously, clean energy from the sun, wind, and water don't affect CO2 concentration in the air, but they only make up 1/3 of global electricity production. The rest of it releases greenhouse gas emissions. The thinking is, if we gave our power plants an hour break, we'd significantly reduce those CO2 emissions on a global level. What an easy way to fight climate change together.
But we're not doing it. There are some places making some efforts. We, sadly, in the island are not one of them. I've already mentioned New York. There are 90,000 birds a year die from just colliding into buildings. They get confused, they collide into buildings. When they first put those Twin Towers lights up, the next morning they were finding lots of dead birds. That's why they introduced that scheme whereby they turn the lights off. But the birds just get disoriented and either exhausted or they fly into buildings. As I say, a total of 90,000 is estimated and could be done something with. And 83% of that could be changed if we just drop the lights a bit. But I don't want to finish with anything depressing. I want to tell you that there is a bright bright side to dark skies as well. Dark skies tourism. Dark skies tourism is something that is comparatively new, probably about 20 years or so. But dark skies tourism does have a lot of benefits to us. The UN, the United Nations, made a list of what they call 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And these 17 Sustainable Development Goals include no poverty, gender equality, industry innovation, just reading some of them out here, responsible consumption, life on land, peace and justice, partnerships for achieving all these goals. All these very important sustainable development goals, SDGs. If we break down dark skies tourism into economy, environment, education and community, 13 of those are on the bottom of my slide there. Sorry, 12. 12 of the 17 sustainable development goals can benefit from dark skies tourism. So we need to be doing things about it. Okay, lots of organisations have, in the course of the last 20 years or so, been set up. This is just a handful. Dark Skies Discovery is one we use in the Isle of Man, but the Dark Skies, that second one down, that is a very huge one, and that's one I'm heavily involved in. The Dark Skies International people, remember the map of the world I showed you, with the US and Europe? Well, this is where they've got international acclaimed dark sky places. You can see the concentration in North America, in Europe, and in Japan, with a few in New Zealand and places like that. And these dark sky places they've got, you can visit them. This is Aoraki in New Zealand. This is Sark, the world's first dark skies island. It could have been us. It's another story. And Moffat up in Scotland. And what the Dark Skies people do, the Dark Skies people have established 5 different designations of dark sky sites. Communities, parks, reserves, sanctuaries, and urban dark sky places. And I've begun to get heavily involved in this organisation through the fact that in COVID, when my wife was fed up being under her feet, I just started to write a book. And what happened is I wrote my book, which I've got a copy for there to show you. I wrote my book, and I was lecturing on a cruise ship in 2022 in Alaska. And I'll never forget it, because we only got on the ship in Vancouver. The next day, after my lecture, a lady came up to me and said, "I liked your book." And I'm thinking, you could only bought it last night when we set sail. You can't buy things when the ship's in port. She read the whole book from cover to cover in less than 24 hours. And it suggested to me that I became an advocate for the Dark Skies International people. So, they put my name forward, I became an advocate in September 22, and I'm actually designated as the Isle of Man International Dark Skies Ambassador. And one of the remits I have is to make people aware of this problem, which is what I'm doing today. If you like my book, you're more than welcome to buy a copy, and if it's available for £18, I'll give you a discount if you buy one today during the conference. And I'll sign it for you as well. But what have we done in the Isle of Man? Well, this is the Isle of Man. Just look at the lights down there of the northwest of England. Look at the lights of Ireland. And if you look very closely, you can see the Ben McCree on that one. This has taken some time, but you can just about make out the Ben McCree going to Haitian. But we have got very good dark skies in the Isle of Man. Why? Is it because the Isle of Man government have turned all the lights off? No, it's because we're on an island. And when you stand on Douglas Promenade and look out to sea, there's no lights. It's a geographical fact that we have dark skies, not because of any human intervention by us. But the government in 2012 did set up an initiative to actually do something about dark skies tourism. And they announced a new strategy whereby they would have a whole host of diversification ideas. These included things like theme parks, spa breaks, shopping, wedding tourism and so on. And one that they entitled Dark Sky Astronomy Destination. I've never seen that heading before or since. It's not called that, but it doesn't matter. I was tasked with helping the Isle of Man government to try and do something about this initiative. So what we did, we set about getting all sorts of ideas. We got in touch with the Dark Skies Discovery people in the UK, who were the guy for the region we were involved in. It's a UK thing, but they let the Isle of Man be involved. He lived in Liverpool, and you've seen the effect of the northwest of England. He was delighted to come to the Isle of Man. He came to the Isle of Man, and we established a total of 7 dark sky sites at these locations.